So anybody listening, like, don't listen to anybody who say when they say you can't do it. You know what I'm saying?
Don't even listen to yourself sometimes when you tell yourself you
Absolutely.
can't do it. Oh, I can't do this. I don't have enough time.
Oh yeah.
All of that, that's the devil anyway. Tell you don't have enough time. You're not smart enough to
That's
do
right.
Yeah.
this. Yeah. That's all it is.
Oh yeah. But I mean, it was terribly hard because it was like for the first 3 months I couldn't stand up straight. You know, because I had to wait for the scar on my stomach to heal. So I was bent over for 3 months.
Wow.
So I had to wait until that healed. Not only that, but it wasn't just a quick fix. It was like every day I was throwing up.
Really?
Not like, you know, I mean every meal. Every day I'm throwing up. And so I remember one of the doctors thought I was bulimic or anorexic. She thought I was causing myself to throw
Please,
up.
lady.
But it was from all the medication and things like that. It was making me sicker.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we didn't know what was wrong, so they were just trying anything. We'll try this.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, we'll
So
try
they're
this.
just trying medicine on you?
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, we're practicing.
We're practicing medicine.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And hopefully we
Practicing
can
medicine.
figure something out for
And
you.
hopefully one of these combinations, try this. And if this doesn't work, let's try this. And if that doesn't work, how about we try these together?
Right.
And then if that doesn't work, we're going to add this to it. And then maybe we'll subtract this. And then we'll
And
add.
maybe we should give you all of them and you overdose.
Right.
And we're getting sicker and sicker, and the pharmaceutical companies,
Oh,
they're getting richer and richer
don't even
and
Right.
richer.
share with them.
Yeah.
So I was taking up to 13 pills a day.
You're kidding me.
13.
Sheesh.
13 pills a day. I mean, it was a huge struggle. And I remember, I don't know how I stumbled upon this book one day, but I stumbled upon this book. I'm trying to think of the author's name. I remember his first name was Mark Hyman. Mark Hyman. But there's a facility up in the Berkshires of Massachusetts called Canyon Ranch. And it's basically a holistic health facility where they, you know, Chinese herbs and you know, all kind of holistic treatments, acupuncture therapy. And so I remember reading this book and his story was just like mine. And I was thinking, oh my God, he had all these digestive
The
issues.
detox
and,
plans and stuff like
Yeah.
that. He does that. Okay,
Exactly.
I've heard of him.
yeah. So I read this book and I don't know where I got this book from, but I read it and I just thought, oh my God, I saw myself in his story because he had all these digestive issues. He
I've
was going
heard
to all
about
these
him.
different doctors. They couldn't find out what was wrong. And so I said, wow, if I could just get to this place, maybe they could help me. Now, mind you, the place was like $12,000 a week.
Yeah. So.
And I'm a broke graduate student, so I just don't know how I'm going to come up with $12,000.
Right.
And I remember talking to a good girlfriend of mine. I will always be so grateful to her for what she did for me. And I remember her saying, you know, well, Seneca, if money wasn't the issue, would you go to this facility?
Wow.
I said, absolutely. I'd leave today. She said, meet me at the bank. Yeah, so I met her at the bank. And she gave me a cashier's check for the full amount
Wow.
of going to this place. She gave me her flight miles so that I could get a flight to the place. Okay, because remember, I'm a broke college student. Just trying to make it. Just trying to make it.
Yes.
And so I remember going up there. I didn't even tell my parents I was going. The only people who knew was my best friend and my younger sister.
Wow.
Because you know how parents and old folks pray about it and it's all in your head and just sit down somewhere and take a nap.
Yeah.
Get
Take a
whatever,
nap.
you know. Okay, you know,
Get
it's
you
just,
some rest.
right. Get some rest. You
Drink
probably
some
just doing a little
water.
too much. Drink some water. You constipated. Something.
Yeah.
You know what
Oh
I'm
my
saying? But
God.
they're not. You know, they're not in tune with
They
all
don't
this.
mean no harm.
They don't
at
mean
all.
no harm. They just don't know any better. They don't mean any harm.
it.
And so I remember I took the flight and my best friend and her mother dropped me off. And my sister, I would call her every day and we'd call my mom on three-way to make it look like I was still in Houston.
Wow.
Sneaking.
Wow.
To make it look like I was still in Houston. Hey mom, she's like, how's school going? I'm like, oh, it's going well.
Yeah.
Yeah, class is all right. Now my professors knew that I was in Massachusetts and they knew to keep it quiet. I was like, hey, listen, I have a problem and I need some serious help. And I think this facility can help me. So I'm
Wow.
going to take this flight. I'll be missing a week of class. I promise you I'll make it up when I get back. But this is something that I have to do for myself. My very life is on the line.
Wow.
My life is on the line. And they gave me their blessings. Miss Dunmore, we'll see you when you get back.
I love that.
And let me tell you, it was like once they took me off of all that westernized medication
Yeah.
and we started trying all of these holistic methods,
Yeah.
you know, the Chinese herbs and the acupuncture therapy and the meditation and the affirmations and things like that, is when my body actually started to heal.
That's something.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not against Western medicine.
Right.
You know, if it works for you, it works for you.
Mm-hmm.
But this just so happened to work for me.
Wow.
This method just so happened to work for me. And so I came back just feeling like a new person. And I had all this hope now because it was like, wow, I'm not crazy.
Right.
You know, because people will make you feel like you're crazy.
Absolutely.
Like something's really, really wrong with me.
Right. And so I was dealing with a lot of depression at that time. You know, it just took a lot out of me. You know, when you go from a curvy 120 to 72 pounds
Yeah.
and nobody can tell you what's wrong.
Yeah.
They can't give you any answers. You start to think something is wrong with you. Like, maybe this is all in my head. Maybe I am imagining this. Maybe it's something, you know, maybe it's something wrong with me. And then you're going from doctor to doctor and they're telling you, well, we don't see anything. Are you stressed?
Yeah.
Is there anything going on in your life?
Wow.
You know, are you having problems at home? Is school stressing you out? Did you lose someone recently? You know, so they're starting to question you because all of these tests are coming back fine.
Right. Right.
So they're thinking it's probably all in your head. Or maybe you're doing this to yourself and you're trying to disguise it as this health issue. And so I tell people depression is a very real thing.
Oh,
Absolutely.
It is such a real thing because the physical scars were the easiest to heal. Trying to heal the emotional and the psychological scars was the hardest part for me.
And that's the hardest thing.
That's the
ever.
hardest thing.
Yeah, depression is really hard. Like you can, like you said, a scar on the outside, you can heal with that.
Right.
You can be stuck with depression forever.
Oh yeah, you can be stuck
Yeah.
with it for a long time. And depression is a very real and very serious mental illness. And I tell people, you know, mental illness is just that, an illness. It's not an identity. You know, sometimes you just have a bad day. Sometimes things are just not going right in your life, and you know, you might suffer from a short bout of depression. And then you have other people who it's a real thing. It's a mental illness. It's something that they struggle with day to day. So to compare having a bad day to someone who has major depression is like, you know, comparing a paper cut to an amputation.
And people want you to get over it. They say, why don't you get over it?
Right, just listen to some music or do something that makes you happy.
Watch TV and laugh. Watch
you know,
more
watch
than
some
laugh.
comedy and you know, but it is a serious chemical
Thank
imbalance.
you.
So there is something really wrong. And like I said, it's something that we don't want to talk about because it's such a stigma attached to it. You know, if you were sitting in an audience and said, hey, who has recovered from cancer? You know, there might be a couple of people who raise their hand and it's like, oh, okay, wow, that's wonderful. Thank God, you know, that's wonderful. But if you say, well, who's suffering from major depression? Who's bipolar?
Yeah.
You know.
Hands, no.
And then I know they're lying then.
Right.
I'm like,
No,
okay.
nobody's going to raise their hand.
Yeah.
Like I said, people always think that they know my story.
Yeah.
And then when they hear it, they're like, I would have never guessed you went
Right.
through all of that. I would have
Right.
never known that because for so many years I was ashamed of it and I hid it. You know, I remember I would go to the beach and I put makeup over my scars because I didn't want people to know I had scars, you know.
Wow.
I was just very embarrassed about them and I just didn't want to talk about it. You know, if you weren't in my like immediate circle, if you weren't part of my family, then you probably just didn't know about it.
So when did you get comfortable with who you are and what you were going through?
You know, I finally told my story one day at church in the women's ministry. And I just got to a point where I was like, you know what? This is my story. This is what happened to me. And I just remember, you know, my women's ministry director being like, oh my God, that was an amazing story. Like, you need to tell people about that.
Yeah.
And so I remember on our next women's retreat, she said, well, Seneca, would you be open to sharing your story with the women? And so I was like, well, I guess so. Yeah, I guess I will. And so I got up there and I mean, it wasn't a dry eye in the room. We were all crying. I'm crying. Everybody in the thing crying because they were like, Seneca, we had no idea. You walk around and you're always smiling. You're so bubbly and you have great energy. I would have never known you were going through all
You
that.
don't know my story.